Hello everyone. Now, I am currently leveling the Royal and Navy battleships, but while I'm doing this on my main account, I'm of course also leveling my Russian cruisers on the Russian server at the same time. And I did promise you guys I was going to feature more Dmitri Donskoi gameplay because, well, a lot of people struggle with this ship. It's not really an easy ship to adapt to because well, you lose a ton of concealment going from the Chapayev to the Donskoi, but unlike when you get to the Moskva, you still haven't gained that big health pool bonus, and you haven't gained that big armor bonus. So you're still quite squishy in terms of survivability, but your concealment is no longer the great Chapayev concealment. In fact, the spicy thing about the Chapayev is the fact that in the Chapayev you have 10.2 kilometers of concealment, I think. So that means if you get spotted in the Chapayev, you can easily radar to counter. So whenever you get spotted, you can just radar to counter anyone who's spotting you. That of course doesn't work in the Donskoi anymore. You got 12.3 km concealment and your radar is 11.7, which automatically means that you can easily get outspotted from outside of your radar range. This game though, I will mostly be showing how to use the speed. One of the great advantages of the Donskoi is absolutely the speed. I'm pretty sure it's the fastest tier 9 cruiser. It's among, well, exception being probably French cruisers, especially with speed boost active. But it's a very fast cruiser and it's surprisingly agile. It doesn't really have the best handling in terms of turning, but the great speed allows it to maneuver quite well. And of course the guns are very railgun-esque, as you can see from the way I've been able to land shells. Now you might notice you see the same tag on these guys, BLS/A. The enemy has a pretty nasty division going on there. They got Fletcher, Donskoi. So double Fletcher and the Donskoi division on the enemy team. Now this can of course be a pretty big problem, especially if we look at the minimap. We can see that both my Bismarck and North Carolina have decided to sail north to A, as well as one of my DDs. And well, honestly, a lot of force going up there, even our Mayoko is going up there. So we got 5 of our ships going up to A. Luckily though, the enemy team looks like they're committing a lot of forces to A as well, which is great for us. Now why is this great on Okinawa for us? Because going to A isolates you from the rest of the map. That's why going to A is generally considered a pretty damn bad move. Even if it's riskier to sail around between B and C, even in a cruiser like I am here. If you go to A, you isolate yourself from the rest of the map. Cruisers going to A isn't that big of a deal, but battleships going to A, that's a pretty damn big deal, because they lose the impact they could have on the game, and they lose that area denial that the battleship brings. The more battleships there are around B and C, the harder it is for a cruiser to maneuver around, because, well, you have to watch your angles, you have to be careful. For example, if there was a battleship down at C right now, I couldn't really push in the way I'm doing right now, because I would be exposing full broadside to anyone at C. So the more battleships move up to north, to A, especially north of A, the less threat, the less presence, and the less impact they have on my freedom of sailing in general. So this is of course, us having battleships up there is a bad thing, but the enemy team also sending their battleships up there is a good thing, because it allows me to have a bigger impact. You can of course see the great HE pen. This is naturally with IFHE, which I recommend running on the Donskoi. You can see the great damage you can do to an Amagi who's trying to angle. Pretty much rarely, if ever, shatter any shells. If shells are shattering, it's mostly because I'm hitting the turrets. Other than that, you can pretty much expect to see penetrations and pretty damn good damage. Of course, with a pretty damn good fire chance as well. I was tempted to go up and help them in case they had this DD to deal with, but honestly, with this enemy division, the Fletcher Donskoi division, I think I'm just gonna turn around and see if I can help them out at B and C, since it looks like this division is pushing C. And naturally, of course, if you play a radar cruiser, especially a Soviet radar cruiser, which has such great range on the radar, you want to be able to have an impact with that radar. You want to be able to help your team with it. So I'm going to turn around and see if I can help them down at C. It looks like we will lose C, because, well, the Bismarck is very low. The Bismarck has been actually trying his best there, but once again, double Fletcher divisions are pretty nasty. Not just because they bring gunpowder, But because with the permanent smoke, you can pretty much non-stop keep shooting from the smoke. One guy spots, the other guy sits in the smoke and just shoots. And Fletcher has a very short torpedo reload time, so it's non-stop torps coming out. Even if Bismarck runs Hydro, it's constant barrage of these torps. So I'm gonna move down. Now, hitting DDs at long ranges, this is something the Baltimore would struggle at. Trying to hit DDs at these ranges is something the Baltimore, for example, and even the Neptune would struggle at quite a bit. But Donskoi has quite an easy time because these shells are quite heavy, the shell velocity is great, and they are pretty much very railgun-esque. So you can do a lot of damage to any enemy DDs. I'm trying to see if I can maybe see. I'm not radaring yet. I want to see my shells land and see if maybe I can get the kill without using a radar, because I don't want to waste this consumable. But if, however, he doesn't die, which it looks like he didn't, I wait until my reload and then I pop my radar. Trading a radar for a guaranteed DD kill is a very good trade. It's a very good trade. Trading one consumable for getting rid of a key enemy ship is very important. He changes course just as I shoot, probably should have predicted that, but it's okay, I get a second chance at killing him, and the first third of this enemy division has been dealt with, which is of course very valuable. But they still have a Fletcher and a Donskoi division, so I need to keep that in mind. I'm gonna use my speed though to push further in to sea, and in general just harass them as much as possible. There's a smoke ahead of me, I think I might be able to dip into it. If I start getting focused, I can probably use the smoke to turn around as well. You can already start seeing the impact that because they lost 2 DDs, they're losing a lot of map presence. My DDs are able to push a lot more aggressively up at B and in general have a bigger impact. Fire chance or fire on the Amagi. I need to make sure I get rid of the Amagi first. Delete the Amagi first so he can't harass my flanks, and once I've deleted the Amagi I can deal with the Myoko that's on my right flank. But always try to deal with the battleships first, because the Myoko, sure, he can spam HE on me, but that's nowhere near as big of a threat as the battleship AP. 4 people targeting me as I turn, no surprise. Whenever you get broadside, a lot of people will focus you. Switching to AP, of course. This AP is unlike the Chapayev AP, the Donskoi AP is very strong, even at a fair amount of range. Also, the torps are 8 km on the Donskoi, unlike Chapayev's 4, so if you do sail close to smokes, you might be able to catch people off guard with these torpedoes. I do take some big hits, I think that might be the Donskoi who's shooting me as well. Citadel, the Myoko, to deal with him. And something spots this Fletcher. I wait for him to reverse. See, usually when they're reversing, they change course. So I wait until I see his smokestack and his ship stop reversing, and then I shoot slightly ahead of him. That way he accelerates into my shells. The torps force him to maneuver as well. And another big hit. He might even... Will he sail into my torps? Don't think so. But let's see if I can finish this guy off. His smoke is fading. And that's the second Fletcher of this division killed, and I do manage to unlock my Kraken, which is of course always satisfying to get, especially on a map like Okinawa, which generally isn't that cruiser friendly. Donskoi is fairly angled. I do want to shoot AP at him though. I would love to drop my torps, but the torps have a long cooldown, and I think they got broken at some point, which reset the cooldown. He is giving broadside. This should be citadels, but I think I aim a bit too high, so instead of citadels, I just get a ton of overpens. He, on the other hand, does citadel me. I correct my mistake. I thought he was turning full broadside, but he was still remaining angled, so I aim lower the next time, and I do score a double citadel on him, and I scored a kill on the Donskoi as well. So that's the third guy from that 3-man division killed by me, which is of course, it's always satisfying when you face a very strong enemy division and then you just kill all of them. It's satisfying in a sense, like you can bring your divisions, but it won't it won't beat me. Now, of course, we're at an issue. Donskoi doesn't do too well when it gets focused a lot. In general, you want to kind of maintain your distance. In this case, though, we got 3 battleships or 2 that's aiming at me all the time. So, first of all, I want to slow down because I want this cap. Second of all, I constantly angle in to try and dodge these shells. I'm pretty sure the NC has used his repair, so I want to get a fire on him. But when he gives this much broadside, AP is absolutely the king. And I managed to get the cap, but now I'm starting to get some big hits. I try to maintain being angled. but it's gonna be hard to tank all these shells. I do have my heal working, and now I get to punish this North Carolina broadside. I'm not aiming at the waterline because I don't really care if I get citadels or not. I want the big pens. And you can start seeing that was 5.8 followed by 4.4. That's more than 10k with a AP volley. So this AP, as I said, very, very strong. I shouldn't be underestimated. Another 4k hit. It looks like sadly I won't get that kill. Would have been nice to get the 7th kill as well. The Fletcher is in fact charging in to smoke me, but it doesn't really matter at this point because I pop my radar, we spot the Kagero, but it doesn't matter at this point because the game is already over. It was honestly quite a short game, but I felt it really showed the power of these long-range shells, and basically these shells have a much heavier feel to them than the Chapayev shells, and that's why the ship is so much stronger at range than the Chapayev is. But in return, of course, you lose concealment, and you don't really gain the tankiness of the Moskva yet. So the Donskoi is kind of a transition ship between the Chapayev and the Moskva. When basically the cruiser switches styles heavily, you go from this very stealthy, squishy cruiser to pretty much battleship Moskva, and this Donskoi is kind of the step between the two, and it requires a lot of adapting and learning to play the cruisers in a different way, which is something I guess a lot of people are kind of struggling with. 121k damage, not really that much, but then you gotta consider how many just DDs I kept shooting at, and even cruisers and such things. 6 kills, could have been 7, sadly didn't get the North Carolina. Amusingly, I got the Dreadnought in this game as well, because of I tanked so much damage. Getting Dreadnought in cruisers and surviving is of course, well, you only get it if you survive, is always amusing. Team score wise, 2.2k base XP, could have naturally been more, but the most satisfying part was really that dealing with that A division pretty much on my own. And of course you can see the XP of the guys who went up to A is pretty pitiful, as it usually is, because when you go A on Okinawa, you lose all your map impact, and usually your XP rewards reflect this outcome. Looking at the detailed report, only 1.2 million potential damage. It can be a lot higher. Damage upon your spotting, 31k, not that much, but then you gotta consider this was mostly radars on DDs, so it's pretty damn valuable damage. Damage is pretty evenly spread between HE and AP. Not really that much fire damage this game. You can get much better fire damage. For example, you saw the previous Donskoi commentary I posted. That one was with enemy battleships and such pushing towards me, and you could see just how much fire damage I did that game. So this ship is very versatile in terms of damage dealing. It has good HE and it has good AP. The natural problems it has is of course squishiness and large citadel, but it does kind of have speed to help compensate, and pretty decent firing angles to help compensate for this problem. But it's not an easy ship to play, and it does require some experience to get the most out of it. Damage tanked 53k, which is pretty nice considering we got a 44k health pool, so obviously a lot of heal usage there. And finally, of course, the detailed report, gained 28k Captain XP on this guy, which is pretty nice since this is my Soviet commander, which I'm still leveling. If you're wondering what build I'm using, I'm still using exactly the same build that I showed you guys in my previous Donskoi commentary. I can put a link in the comments in case you're wondering how you should spec your Donskoi. Anyway, that was all for me. I hope you guys enjoyed it.